Okay, good morning slash good afternoon. This is Mr. Reed coming at you live. So today we're going to be talking a bit about the exam prep, and also today is just a continuation of working on your creative formal formative. So the majority of today is just dedicated to working together and collaborating on your exam prep, and obviously you are welcome to have Zoom meetings with me today as well if you'd like to schedule some of those. Just kind of talk through the text. You're welcome to do that, but you're also welcome to just kind of work and collaborate with your classmates. So let's talk quickly about what the exam is all about. So first off, it's on Friday, May 15th. It starts at 8:20, and the exam is due on 10:25. The exam is going to be a comparative analysis between one literary text from semester 2 and one unseen non-literary text, right? And I've also posted the rubric, so feel free to check that out and look at what exactly it is that I'll be assessing you on. You will analyze the two texts and use them as reference points to one of three questions, and I am front loading those questions to you so you know what the questions are when you come into the exam. And as long as you're knowledgeable and you have the skill sets and you're able to make conceptual connections to those texts, then you're good to go, right? So for our exam, there are 5 concepts, right, that I'm going to be looking for: identity, culture, perspective, transformation, and representation. You do not need to do all 5 of these for whatever text you choose, okay? You're going to see the question in a second, and I'll talk about that. But just know that these are the 5 concepts that we've covered for the last 2 short stories from Lahiri, and we're going to plug a couple of these into different text types that we've covered for semester 2, all right? Now, if you're confused still, just give me a minute to kind of talk through some of this, and we'll work on the exam questions in a second. What are the non-literary texts, right? So it's one and one literary, one non-literary. This could be, there's quite a few different options. You're not going to see these. These are unseen texts, and you have not seen excerpts that I'm going to be pulling from the literary texts. But again, if you're familiar with those texts, like, that shouldn't be too big of an issue, right? You guys know what identity is, you know what culture is, you know what representation is. For the non-literary texts, you may get a poster, you might get a picture, you might get a magazine cover. We've done this actually quite a few times especially when we were going through the post-colonial unit with Adichie and Jamaica Kincaid, and we worked through some non-literary texts as well when we were looking at some of Leslie Tenera's work. So what literary texts are you going to see on the exam that you may choose from? Okay, well, the first one is A Small Place by Jamaica Kincaid. The second one is The Dangers of Single Story by Adichie, right? So it's that TED Talk video. And lastly is Jhumpa Lahiri's Interpreter of Maladies with Mr. Prasada Came to Dinner, right? So the only difference between the Kincaid and Adichie and the Lahiri one is that the Lahiri one is going to be just literary text. So you're going to have to do a comparative analysis between an excerpt from Interpretive Maladies and an excerpt from When Mr. Prasada Came to Dinner, okay? The other ones, Kincaid and Adichie, you're going to get a small excerpt from these 2 texts, whichever one you choose, and it's going to be paired with a non-literary text, so a poster or a picture or a magazine, right? If that is still kind of confusing to you, you're welcome to ask me. We can talk about it a little bit more. Again, I'm free today for a Zoom meeting. Anyways, but some more formality things. So the exam is going to be posted on Google Classroom. You're going to get the document, and basically you have the time period to go ahead and answer that question. And then when you are done, I'd like you to go ahead and submit it to Google Classroom. And please make a copy of it and turn it into turnitin.com. And there will be a slot available for you, right? So this is due before the end of the exam. All right, so make a copy, submit your copy from Google Classroom back to Google Classroom, and then make a copy and submit it to turnitin.com. Okay, cool. So it's the same thing. Okay, so the exam question, right? This is like your prompt. So you're going to choose a literary text or a non-literary text, or if you're choosing Lahiri, you're going to get 2 literary texts and no non-literary text. And you choose the question that you feel is going to play best into your strengths, right? So if you really enjoyed our studies on culture or representation or identity, one of those or 2 of those, you should pick the one that you feel like you're really going to be able to make some strong senses of moments of gravity and some good conceptual connections. So analyze the 2 texts, literary, non-literary, and use them as a reference point to respond to one of the 3 following questions. All right, so the first one, is it ever possible to represent someone or something else with total accuracy and fairness? So you're going to want to look at the way a person or a place or a thing is represented within the text and think about the question of, do you think that it's accurate and do you think it's fair, right? Now, again, within representation, you are welcome to also talk about things like culture and identity. Okay, you're not limited to representation, but you should be able to answer the question um, pertaining to the concept. So, you in your maybe your thesis statement, you're going to want to talk about how representation is used and employed in that text. Okay, and then think about whether it's accurate or fair. The second question you could choose from: to what extent is your identity dependent on the culture in which you are raised? Okay, so we have 2 concepts here. We have identity. So to what extent is your identity dependent on the culture in which you are raised? So you're going to want to think about how that's presented within the text itself, right? C, how do our experiences transform our perspectives, right? So um, on one end of this, you should think about how your text that you're choosing, whether it's Kincaid or Adichie, and those nonlinear texts that you're pairing those with, or if you're just doing the Lahiri text itself, you're going to want to think about how those texts are transformative, right? First off. And then you can start thinking about a little bit how that shapes your own perspective as a reader, right? Because reading is transformative. Okay. So think about how the text is transforming. Maybe it's a theme, maybe it's an idea, maybe it's the way a text is represented or a person's represented. It changes our perspective. So there's a little bit of a personalized essay associated with this. This is a formal essay, but you are welcome to incorporate, as long as you kind of pull examples from the text. Talk a little bit about how that shifts your own perspective. And that's it. Those are the 3 questions, right? So again, if you look at one of these 3 and you're like, hey, this is the one that I want to do, this one just makes sense to me, I already kind of have an idea as to the way something's represented, or maybe the culture within the text, or maybe there's a really, this text was really powerful. I had a lot of moments of gravity within the text that really pertain to my own interests, then maybe choose one of these 3, right? All right, so we have our rubric here. I'm going to let you guys go ahead and read this yourselves, and if you have questions, you are welcome to email or Zoom with me. But basically, it's going to be about being knowledgeable about the text. That's really important here. Is that you're kind of coming in and you're saying, I'm going to do Lahiri, or I'm going to do Adichie, or I'm going to do Kincaid. So there's an expectation that you know your text. Okay. B, that's deep more within the analysis itself. So to what extent understanding of the main expectations of the question, right? So you're able to make connections, conceptual connections to whatever concept question you're doing. So if you're doing transformation, I want you to be able to use that type of language in your response. If you're going to be talking about the identity and how that's representative culture, then I want you to be able to talk about that. Organization, and then finally your academic register. So let's make sure again that you're using the language that you've been given. So if you want to talk about post-colonial ideas, hegemony or otherization, hybridity, those are fine. Those are all good. If you want to talk about things like syntax or diction, or you want to talk about themes or motifs that are present in that text, you are welcome to talk about those as well. All right. This is not to scare you. This is just kind of a break, just an explanation of some things that I'm going to be looking for in the text, right? All right. So today, what's today all about? So the exam prep, I'd like you to take some time to figure out first off which text you want to do. Are you going to do Lahiri's 2 texts? Are you going to do Adichie? Are you going to do Kincaid? Take a minute to just kind of like reread some of that and just kind of make sense of head to tails of what that text is. Once you've done that, begin to review some of your concepts. So you want to pick a question that is most appropriate to your particular text. So maybe it's, again, transformation, or maybe it's identity or representation. And then I'd like you to spend some time just looking at the text and trying to figure out, which, the examples, like which concept do you feel like applies best to your text. And look for some examples that are specific to the text. So this is on your own time, but go ahead and pull passages directly from the text. Just again, it's an opportunity for you to practice, an opportunity for you to kind of think about the specifics within the text itself, and work with some concrete examples. For collaboration, you are welcome to do that with your group mates. Again, this is prior to, this is in preparation for the exam itself. You're welcome to just do this for practice sake. Obviously, we're not bringing notes or anything like that into the class, into the exam itself. But this is obviously a good methodology for practice, right? It's a good space to be able to work with the text and be able to talk to your group mates or your student people in the class. So feel free to brainstorm and feel free to collaborate and kind of talk over ideas and concepts. I'm happy to Zoom with you and answer some questions. And the attendance work is just say hello on the little sidebar here. I'll have that in a minute. Oh, that's not it. Okay. Yeah. So it'll be right here. Just say hello. Make sure that you do that so you get marked down as present. The other thing today, as I said in this document, today is just about kind of finalizing your creative formal formative. And again, this is just a brief medium, a creative medium where you've written your vignette and you're just coming up with a text type that you feel like is best representative of that vignette. Something that is transformational and an experience that you had that changes your perspective. If you have time today, if you don't, that's fine. But you're welcome to write up your 100-word creative formal formative. And basically, again, that's just an explanation of how does your work represent this transformation and change in perspective, right? So just a brief write-up, pretty low pressure here. Have fun with that. Again, folks, if you have any questions, feel free to talk. We can meet on Zoom, and I can give you some guidance. So have a wonderful day. I'll see you.